know he probably leaves it here on purpose. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the study session for the Planning Commission. It's 6 o'clock, and we're starting a couple minutes late. All right. So basically, we're using this opportunity. We have these before as commissioners, just to discuss if we have any questions on the agenda, and then also to discuss any particular topic. So we've had them before around the comprehensive plan, and thought that with 3 new members that we probably needed to go over a few things with our new commissioners. All right, so thank you, Mr. Tommy. Do you want to go ahead and?
Yes, ma'am. I did not prepare a PowerPoint. I figured this would be more conversational than, teaching, because these are y'all's bylaws. Anything is subject to change, and we're talking about y'all's decision making. So, that's kind of in your court.
Okay.
I certainly don't want to come across as telling you what you're supposed to do.
No, but we need you to give us some direction and guidance, so that is not.
So, in the memorandum, I cited the state code of law about the organization of the commission, and that you adopt the rules of organizational procedure. And there's a copy of those in your packet. To be honest with you, until I started putting this together, I had not read them. When Dr. Crawford started pulling them out last month, I'm thinking, oh, there's some somewhere. And I've been at it a year, so I figured the new commissioners may not have seen them either. So these are the rules that the board, and Dr. Crawford, correct me if I'm stating this wrong, but that the Planning Commission has come up with, and the rules that they've decided on how they conduct business. And if there's something in here that gives you heartburn, as long as it doesn't violate state law in some way, you could amend that. Just like whenever I was looking through there and I saw you meet at 7, I had heartburn. My heart dropped, and then I remembered, no, y'all stayed at 7. It's the other one that went to 6. So it's important that whenever we do make changes in what we do, we keep these up. But it basically refers to the development code and state law, the regular meetings. Does it say Thursday?
I noticed that every third Thursday of the month. Article 2, 1.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah, and we did take a vote and opt to change that, so we do need to maybe change that to,
Wednesday.
yeah.
And do you want this to come back to y'all, or did you change those at that meeting?
We changed it when we set the schedule at the December meeting, so we have to decide and make any changes to the, so it's the yearly schedule will be adopted prior to January 1st of every year. So we followed that step.
But do you want me to bring it to you for a vote next month with the change in the bylaws?
No, just if you could ask Kelly whether or not, given that we vote on a yearly schedule,
Okay.
whether or not we need the date in there.
Okay.
Because if we vote on it yearly, if it changes to Tuesday if we change it to Tuesday next year, right, we don't need to change the bylaws every year when the step 1 says that we can change it.
Then at location of the meeting. And of course, y'all have that as, or you can put in a different designated place. The chair can call for a special call meeting. The one thing that I always remind developers when they want a specially called meeting is by the time we do the newspaper public notice, if it involves a public hearing, you're not getting anywhere. You're really not moving the needle much. our public notice. And then we talk about study sessions, and that's where we're at tonight. And, you know, the study sessions are just for the commission without any public input unless y'all ask for it. The agendas, I think we do pretty good there, following the agenda. But I had heard Cully mention this and didn't know where it was at. But as far as what comes first on applications, and of course, you know, you think first one in, first one heard. Well, no. If there's a comprehensive plan amendment, that comes first. A zoning map amendment or an annexation comes next. You know, and on further down, you got the general development plan that would come above a major subdivision plan. And that's just the order that we put those in, and then by staff, you know, we would rank those classifications in first come, first served. You know, all your major subdivisions would be ranked. The staff reports and comments and questions, I don't think that, as far as I know, we're still doing what we need to be doing as far as staff, unless y'all tell me something different. I would comment that commission comments and questions, sometimes I get questions here at the end that it's difficult to answer. And some of those questions, you might get a better answer if you ask me offline. And I had an opportunity to look into it a little bit and drill into it. Because here, sometimes I'm flat-footed, and it just gives me I don't want to say anything on the public record that I can't back up. Speaking of which, while we're there, speaking of messing up, and you know where I'm going, Dr. Crawford, I think. But last month, I made the statement that the application, if it was denied, could not come back for a year, and I was wrong. I was wrong on that, and I accept it. If it had been a text amendment, a rezoning, a variance, that would apply. But for development approval, it doesn't. So I'm sorry about misleading y'all. I was erring on the side of caution, to be honest with you.
I was of the opinion, I wasn't at the meeting, but I'm of the opinion you would have been correct. What did you find that you?
I did not find that in the development code. When I drilled into it, I found it on these other sections that I'm talking about. But I did not find it there. In fact, it was more of you tell the developer what he needs to do to get right, and then he can come back.
Can I ask another question before you go to?
Sure.
In the ranking of the agenda,
Yes, sir.
sometimes we'll have one agenda item here, and then 2 or 3 down, it will be one similar to that. Is that not appropriate, that we can just, instead of having it in its true ranking, to put it where it belongs, if it's the same subject matter?
You can always
Do it at the meeting.
you can always reorder at the meeting. Now you can't add to, but
Yeah, and let me say, sometimes too, though, we have things that may be in 2 different categories on the same development, in which case, even, you may want to flip the order that we do them in, but you may need to keep it together just for that. But I think we have some room around that, but we'll certainly work on that.
and I understand what you're saying, and that's why it's in that order that it's in.
Never knew.
That's the method to the madness, so to speak.
Excuse me, Tommy, one other thing. So one other thing that I just wanted to go over with everyone, and he mentioned it, about being on the public record. I just wanted to remind everyone, we have lovely new mics, which are very sensitive, and we sit down to talk sometimes before, and we're having personal conversations before the meeting starts, and we need to either turn your mic off if you're having a personal conversation, or if it's on, understand that it is part of public record. And so just want to remind everyone, because we get in here and start just, how's your family, how was your trip? And that may not necessarily be something that we need to record for prosperity.
Not, and then for the conducting of the meeting, you've got several different criteria here. You know, you have your criteria for, that when it doesn't require a public hearing, the chair always lets public speak. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I agree with that. But not everything is a public hearing. It's a public meeting, and that's open to the chair and the planning commission, allowing the public to speak in those areas. It's not a public hearing. And then motions. Most of this stuff is just commissioner conduct. The one that surprised me was notification of absence, 24 hours in advance. If y'all will let me know, that's in here, and it does help us make sure we've got the quorum. If we know we're not going to have a quorum, we can call the applicants, we can post it on Facebook, we can let people know rather than everybody getting here and being a no-go. And then this is one that I did not know was in here, was the missing of 3 meetings per year that you'd be recommended for removal by the mayor.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I haven't seen that come up, and hopefully I don't. So, in another place that I worked, if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, council didn't have a say. You were off. Boom. Conflicts of interest and I think we all know. I try to keep the conflict of interest forms, some extras in my book that I bring, because you never know when it pops up. You're always thinking about it, but sometimes you get blindsided. State law does not require you to leave the room. They would everything I've always heard, they recommend you leave the room. And the reason for that is then there's no allegation that you're flashing signs. They're not reading your body language, your facial expressions, that type of thing. But one of the things that I think me and Dr. Crawford had this conversation, but when you're in conversations with people, sometimes you what if. And that's been one of my what ifs with city attorney, with Kelly, is what if we have a quorum and then somebody has to recuse herself and you no longer have a quorum? What do you do? And what he has told me, say you have 4, one recuses himself, you don't let that recusal leave the room. They stay in the room. And then you still have a quorum present. It doesn't say you have to have a quorum on the dais. You have to have a quorum present. So if we ever run into that, just in the back of your mind, we know that going forward. The biggest thing is that's something I've always struggled with and wondered about, and I kind of liked his answer. It made sense. Remember to announce the reason for the recusal and the form. Ex parte appearances or communication, remember, we should not be having those, or y'all should not be having those with the applicants and parties involved in it, or try to minimize that, and certainly not make any decisions based on that ex parte communication. It's all about what goes on in here. In a lot of ways, y'all are like the judges and the juries. What goes on in here. Now, as far as staff, I feel like staff, to be honest with you, is kind of like Switzerland. And we're supposed to listen to the public. We're supposed to give them that information and try to walk that middle ground.
Let me just say, that was one of the ones that I didn't know right off the bat, that nobody told me for a while, but it's also one that I think is probably the thing that comes up the most common, is having to remind folks that legally, we are not allowed to discuss things before they come to the meeting. And I think that's, I don't know about your experience, Commissioner.
It could be a booger.
Yeah.
The only question that I have is, I'm often called, and I nip it in the bud, but I don't bring it before the planning commission. Well, I spoke to such and such, and I want to be on record. Is that an issue?
Well, here's what I'm reading from the book. Is if a planning commissioner receives such communication, the commissioner should immediately inform the citizen that he or she not discuss the pending matter and terminate the conversation. And if a planning commissioner has received ex parte communication, in other words, you've received information, you may continue to participate in consideration, but the commissioner should disclose the extent, nature, and content of the ex parte communication to the commission at the hearing or meeting and affirm his or her objectivity in the matter. So when you cut them off, you're not receiving the information. If somebody sent you a letter and you read it, or they didn't stop, or as probably more apt than not, somebody kind of lulls you in a conversation and you're all of a sudden you're in the middle of a subject matter that you didn't realize you were going down a road you didn't know you were going down before you could stop it. That's how I would probably perceive that happening to y'all. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, you answered it.
What about commissioner to commissioner?
I don't know of anything that prohibits that. I know you have council members in previous councils that I've worked with. There was discussions about issues before it came.
If I'm on a refusal of a subject on the agenda, am I allowed to discuss that?
If you are recusing, if you are,
Participate in that information.
I think what you're getting to is your employer is making an application or representing your client. And because your employer is, you're recusing yourself. So you as an employee can assist your employer, but you could not or should not communicate or advocate with other commissioners how to vote on that.
And in our communication with fellow commissioners, we can't create a quorum in our discussion.
Correct. And that means no three-way or four-way calls or chain emails. Then we have how to conduct the public hearings for those that are, and these are for the quasi-judicial things. This is when you're making policy, you're doing rezonings, you're amending the development code, you're making, basically, most of these, you're making a recommendation to the city council. As is customary in public hearings, there's not cross-examination of witnesses by the other sides, and everything should be addressed to the chair. Everybody should be talking to the chair and the commission. There should not be any discussion or vocal from the gallery, nor should there be any discussions with the people in the gallery. And I know sometimes they spoke and they go back over here and sit down and y'all ask them something. But if you think about it, if you'd ask them to come back to the mic, and the reason I ask you for that is so we can hear them. So when we do the minutes, we've got a good record. When you get away from the mic, that becomes a challenge for Phyllis doing the minutes. And also the folks at home that may be watching. And then the records, the minutes, attendance, public attendance. I think we're all pretty much, is there anything in there that y'all would like to discuss further? Yes, sir?
I should have asked it when we went through it. On the recusal, when we are recusing ourselves, it says the commissioner should announce it. I think in the past, we've handed you the sheet and you said, Mr. Bigger's recusing himself for this conversation, but I don't think it's ever explained why we're recusing ourselves. Should we as commissioners announce, hey, I'm recusing myself from this vote because I live in this neighborhood and have that conflict? So that should be on us to make that announcement.
I think so. I think you come off better and more transparent and are better situated than if it came from staff putting it in the record for you. Of course, if you forget, if you walk out, I'm going to do that.
Right.
That's just part of what we do.
In having said that, being part of a community, I think we had discussed before, that's not a reason to recuse yourself, though, is it?
We discussed before, so I live in Hammond's Ferry.
Right.
So if Hammond's Ferry is on the agenda, we were told originally that that was not in and of itself a reason to recuse ourselves, in part because given the size of our community, that becomes an issue. But I do think that is one of those things that we need to use our best judgment with, right? So if it's my next door neighbor, for example, in Hammond's, then maybe I probably would recuse myself, right?
Or be,
And I will tell you that one is, there has to be a financial interest there. But what I would always suggest to you is if you have that question, call the State Ethics Commission. That's what they're there for. They'll give you an answer one way or the other over the phone or by email, and then you have it in writing. Because those are the people that ultimately will be investigating you if there's an ethics complaint, and they will be the ones that are best kept up with how the interpretations may have changed from year to year to year. Now, having said that, there's the strict rule of when you must recuse yourself, and then there's the appearance of impropriety, and that's a personal judgment call I think that each commissioner has to make at some point. And y'all may disagree with me. I just, sometimes, to me, it's just, if you recuse yourself, then there's nothing anybody can say. Anything else on these before we get into the court cases a little bit?
Thank you.
All right, the question was come up, about what do y'all need in making your decisions as far as to say yay or nay? And there's two decisions. One of them is from North Augusta, is a state Supreme Court decision that I put in your packet. It's Wyndham Enterprises LLC and Rodney Wyndham individually against the City of North Augusta and the City of North Augusta Board of Zoning Appeals. And this was heard in 2012. And basically, y'all all know the building that we're going to be talking about, but it's out on Martintown Road. It was zoned commercial, and they wanted a Halloween stand there and to sell fireworks. And the neighborhood came out and opposed it. And there was traffic issues. There were several issues there that they identified. Traffic issues, I think, property values, typical things. And the Board of Zoning Appeals, I think 14 people spoke against it, and the Board of Zoning Appeals denied the special exception that was required for the fireworks store to go in there. It was appealed to the State Court of Appeals or to the Circuit Court. Remember, if there's an appeal from y'all, it doesn't go to City Council. It goes to Court of Common Pleas, which is what we always referred to as Big Court, Circuit Court. So anyway, they appealed it. Circuit Court upheld the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they appealed it to the State Supreme Court. And then the State Supreme Court gave those 3 words that causes shivers in every planning director's and every city attorney's spine, and that is arbitrary and capricious. And basically, they said, you know, it was commercial property. It was zoned for commercial. The city gave deference to the residential, and they shouldn't have done that. And it met the requirements of the special exception. And there was that there was anecdotal that they felt that it would increase traffic, but there was nothing that, no criteria, no specific evidence other than feelings and generalities. And so they overturned that opinion. And what that resulted in is a fireworks store on West Martintown Road. And from what I understand, talking to Kelly, I heard him say it cost the city about $30,000. Remember, when we turn down something, when a variance is, when we go to court, if we lose, not only are we paying our attorney, not only are we being wrong, and nobody wants to be wrong, but we also have to pay for the fees and the attorneys and everything for the other side. So, that's, I remember telling a fellow one time whenever I was in Aiken, well, go ahead and sue me. Because I got my lawyer. While you're sitting in court, you're not making money and you're paying somebody to be there with you. Well, at the time, I didn't realize, I learned later on in life, that if I lost, I'd have been paying his lawyer to be there with him. So that's just something to kind of know in the back of your mind. And the other one is a case, and this was just a summons, so it's just their side of the allegation. But that was Joseph Beeson and some others against the Anderson County Planning Commission. And this one was kind of interesting. Now, just so you know, this particular individual, these 2 cases were selected on purpose. One is, it's germane, it was North Augusta. It happened at home. It's here with us. The other one is a developer that's developing in the city of North Augusta. So the one thing that kind of summed it up for me was the judge. Whenever he said the planning commission, it was a subdivision preliminary plat. They came in. It was turned down. There was no specific reasons given for how it didn't comply with the zoning ordinance. There was no direction given to how to make it right. And find the wording. I should have highlighted it. Plaintiff appealed the defendant's planning commission's decision, and on May 21, 2021, the judge issued an order holding that the grounds provided by the respondent planning commission on their denial was based on boilerplate, quote, boilerplate, unquote, reasons that were, quote, facially and legally deficient, unquote. The judge further ordered that the defendant planning commission, quote, provide specific reasons why the Copper Hill project was denied at the June 9, 2020 meeting, and the grounds shall include but not be limited to a specific legal explanation of how the plaintiff's preliminary plat application does not comply with Anderson County ordinance criteria. More precisely, the explanation shall include the specific ordinances not being met, along with a comparison of the criteria of the ordinance in the plaintiff's existing preliminary plat application in a manner that outlines how the plaintiffs would need to amend their preliminary plat application in order to meet the Anderson County ordinance criteria. And that's where I come back to saying, turn it down, well, how do they fix it? And it is difficult if you have somebody that meets all the rules, regulations, and ordinances to say no. And that's kind of it for me. Got questions, discussion?
I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of mine, and I know that traffic is a conversation that we are passionate about and we have lots of conversations about, but it is, and I think it was in one of those cases, but I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, that it was, then why was the burden for traffic on that particular developer greater than, right, the others that are also in that same area? And so we just, I think, wanted everybody to understand, and I also, honestly, I don't know that I realized that preliminary plats automatically went to court. And so even in that second case, I think what the judge cited as examples of evidence against, you know, a plat approval that comes before us was not anything that I had ever, I don't know that we've heard much, right? It's usually, honestly, opinion. And then it is also us with our opinions. But the idea that if something is zoned, if it is in keeping with the comprehensive plan, it meets all of the requirements, then we need to have evidence and grounds to deny it. I think it detailed and spelled it out in those court cases in a way that was new for me.
I even went to the point of looking up capricious.
Okay.
And in my decision making, oftentimes I would use the term highest and best use for the land, and in trying to make a quality decision, I'm always in favor of the decision in the affirmative, and so it becomes a little bit complicated. So I don't want to be capricious in my decision making when I'm using terms like highest and best use and traffic. And then sometimes when we're together, my decision has not been resolved until we start talking. And then I come to a conclusion, but it's not always 100% evidence-based. So trying to do better.
No, we all, I mean, that's why we decided to do this, because I
Yeah.
think it was a wake-up call for me and I think for everyone. And just so you all know, we're planning our continuing ed hours where we have to do 3 a year. So Tommy is working to get a consultant who is an attorney to go over exactly in more detail than we are now what that evidence looks like and what kinds of what are the basis for decisions and what does that need to look like? How do we balance, our concerns, community concerns? Again, what is required by policy, right? And so for me, it was just the idea that opinion, including my own, right, does not trump policy.
Right.
And so it is, and sometimes I think we all forget that.
And another thing that was coming up, when we had our session with council about being a planning commission, but we're not really doing a lot of planning and trying to engineer the city in the direction we wanted to go. Do we want these type of structures to be at the mouth of the neighborhood? What are we trying to gain? We know that we want interconnectivity as we want walkability. We've always talked about the corridor going down Georgia Avenue. How can we do some traffic calming? So those are some of the areas that, as planners, we've wanted to head in. But how do we cement those things in that we could get the people that are investing in our community to go in those directions? And that was what we were charged with in our
Well, the
plan.
traffic calming study is in progress. We've contracted that. They've done some preliminary work, and we should have some meetings here shortly. The other thing is you will, in a few months, you'll have the development code revisions coming back to you. And I was talking to an engineer shortly after I came here. He said, you know, Tommy, he says, we build what the code is. And I think about this, and if the code says you can do X, Y, and Z, then they can do X, Y, and Z. And that is, to me, and what his words was, this is the planning part where you write the code, not when you're looking at the sheet. When you're looking at the sheet, you're just enforcing the planning decisions. So I say that whenever y'all get your bite at the apple on the development code, take a close look at it and make sure that we recommend the walkability standards that you want, and the various standards are in that development code, because I think that's where the key is. And there's so much with a consultant that you just go check, 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 and that may not be the best thing for North Augusta. Did that answer you?
It does.
Now, if I could segue, I'm sorry, Dr. Cross.
No, but I was gonna say, so again though, the development code is, reading that is not an easy lift. It is not, and even breaking it up into bite-sized sections with the group that has been convened of both community and myself, and it's still an onerous task. But there are things that we've caught, I think, just as an example, even kind of the discussions around Airbnbs and what place that had in the development code and how do we address that. So the things that you refer to, if they're not in there currently, in a way that you go and look for those things specifically, but also as best you can, try to allot enough time to carefully look through it and to read it, and hopefully the collective of us all will catch the things that are important.
Now, if I could expand on Dr. Crawford's segue a minute ago about the attorney, I have reached out to Ms. Wetmore. She's a licensed attorney that practices land law out of the Charleston area. She's formerly a city manager for the town of Folly Beach, and is currently in the House of Representatives. She's agreed to come up here for a fee and provide training to us. It would be 2 hours of our required continuing education. Some of you all have already got what you need, but I think it would be good if y'all could sit in any case. What we're looking at is the last week in November. It's the week after Thanksgiving. 3 days are in November, and then the 1st and 2nd of December. And I know I've got you on the chart, Mr. Bigger, but is everybody else okay? Because I want to make sure that we get everybody there. Mr. Key, would you be able to be there? I got a thumbs up from Red. I've already got Bob. Okay. And Jesse, do you know? Or could you check on it and email me tomorrow? Check with the boss, let me know tomorrow. And Dr. Crawford? Okay. And of course, I'll say this in the meeting too, but we have joint meeting with City Council coming up October the 6th at 6 p.m.
All right, are there any questions about the agenda items for this evening for Ms. Paradise before we go into? Okay. All right, well then I will adjourn the study session. Anything else, Mr. Paradise? Okay, so I'll adjourn the study session so that we can have a break for about 15 minutes and see you all at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. And we're calling to order our September 21st, 7 p.m. meeting of the Planning Commission, North Augusta Planning Commission. Commissioners, I would like to do, well, before I do roll call, Commissioner Joanne Mackey, who has served with us for years, is no longer on the Planning Commission. She has left. And just want to publicly acknowledge her years of service, her passion, and her knowledge of this community and her love of this community, and thank her again for her many years of dedication and volunteering and serving her community in this way. So with that, if I could please have a roll call of the current commissioners.
Timothy Key.
Rhett Harbison.
Bob Bigger.
Jesse Elliott.
And I am your chair, Christine Crawford. One thing, since we have a full house tonight, I will go ahead and share kind of the general order of how we try to do things, which is when you come to the microphone, please give your name and address. Again, if you come to the microphone to speak at all, please give your name and address. We want everyone that wants to speak to have the opportunity to be heard, and in the spirit of such, ask that everyone keep their comments from the public in less than 5 minutes. We ask that you then share sentiments that are perhaps new. If you have additional questions, if you have a perspective on something that has not been shared, we ask that you share that. But again, we want all of the different voices and perspectives to have the opportunity to be heard, and don't want to run out of time to do so just because, we've got 10 people who are all saying the same thing. The other piece is what we generally do is I will open it up after Mr. Paradise gives his comments. Commissioners have the opportunity to ask him questions. Then we ask the applicant to come forward. Commissioners have that opportunity to ask questions. Then we'll ask the public to come forward. But what we do is we ask that you come to the mic. If you have a quick statement or a question, that you make it, allow your neighbor to do the same, and then we ask the applicant to respond to all at one time at the end. And then at the end of that, the commissioners and we make our decision, have a motion, any further discussion, and vote. Okay. All that being said, if we could move to the approval of the August 17th minutes, please.
I do have one correction, Dr. Crawford and Tommy. On page 3-5 of the minutes, the second paragraph announces Miss Alexandra Reynolds as being a member of Cranston Engineering. We need to correct that. She's with JLA, as I understand it, please.
Thank you for catching that. All right. Any other changes? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes with the aforementioned change of Ms. Alexandra Reynolds being with JLA?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. All right. Mr. Paradise would like to confirm the agenda. Are there any changes or additions?
Excuse me. The only changes was the deletion yesterday of Ms. Mackey.
Okay, Commissioner. All right. If there is nothing else, then we will proceed. All right, so first up is application PP 22-003, Renfield at Chanticleer, major subdivision preliminary plat. This is a request by Merit Commercial Holdings for approval of 127 single-family detached homes located on the 66.67 acre zoned R10 medium lot, single-family residential, and the property is located at the end of Big Pine Road, TPN 002-12-01-002. And I'm sorry, and one other note just for the public. public. If there's anyone for mobility issues or have any other things that we need to accommodate, then please let us know if we need to have a mic brought to you if you are unable to come to the stairs. Yeah? Thank you. All right, Ms. Paradise.
Yes.
I'll be recusing myself from this item on the agenda as I'm an employee of JLA.
Right.
Thank you.
And I will get you that form for you to sign. Madam Chairwoman, this is a matter that came before y'all last month. It failed on a 2-2 tie vote. Then it was reopened and reconsidered by the board, and you had and the board decided to continue it until this month. You previously, I believe it was last October, I had a sketch plan review where the applicant came and talked to the board and the commission about this proposal. After that, he went forward with the project. It's about 66.9 acres. It's zoned R10, medium lot, single-family residential. It has a 5.52 dwelling units per acre, or basically for every home, it's about half an acre of the development. And it's 127 single-family detached homes. The applicant is also requesting a waiver from the block length. The block length is a maximum of 650 feet. The applicant is asking for 1,000 feet. And these basically come back to environmental issues. As you can see, there is some creeks and streams in this area, and that would be one less creek crossing that they would need to go over, and they tried to minimize the creek crossings to the one that was already existing. So you do have that request there for the waiver as well. It's 127 homes. And I'm open to any questions that y'all may have.
Are there any questions for? No, not yet, not yet. I'll announce when questions from the audience can occur. Okay. All right.
Not this moment.
Okay. Not at this moment. All right, if the applicant could please come up and make your presentation. And again, I'll go over the order of business just one more time very quickly. So the applicant will, again, say their name and address. They will share, present their information. Then we will ask members of the audience with no more than 5 minutes to come up and share or ask a question. At that point, we will ask the applicant to return to the microphone and answer all of the questions. Okay? All right, and in an audience, I'm gonna need you all to, if you don't mind, kind of keep it down so that everybody can kind of hear what's going on up here, and so we can make sure, again, that the point of all of this is to make sure that everyone is heard, applicant as well as the community. So, thank you.
Hey, thank you for letting me be here again. My name is Dan Holloway. I live at 506 Tompkins Lane in Evans, Georgia. My partner and Mark Sen and myself, I'm the managing member of the partnership. First, I kind of want to start, and I would give just an overview of what we're looking to do, and then I was going to pass it to Alex, who is the civil engineer, and she'll talk to the more specific points. First of all, I live in Augusta now, but my family's from North Augusta. I've said this at the sketch review, and when we first looked at this property, we did not want to come into the city of North Augusta and do something that that was not wanted by the people. So it's not our intention to do something that makes the neighborhood unhappy or anything like that. Most of my childhood memories are from North Augusta, Woodlawn and Meriwether Drive, and my family, most of my family still lives here. So I appreciate North Augusta. I respect the citizens of Chanticleer being here, and I understand their concerns. And I'm sure we'll understand more of them today, but I don't dismiss those, and I think North Augusta is a special place. And being that, we would not have come into this city and tried to rezone a piece of property. So when we were presented this opportunity, my first question is, what is it zoned? Not only what is it zoned, but what is the long land use plan that the city has for this property? And when we found that it had been zoned R10, it was R2 at one time, and then it was annexed to R10, but in both cases, it allowed for 50-foot lots for the past 30 years. We also found that it was part of the initial intent of the subdivision to be developed, with dead-end streets that were to be developed by the landowner at a later date. We then wanted to take extra caution and make sure that we were doing everything we needed to do to be respectful of not only the environment, but also the neighborhood. We went to the planning staff and reviewed with stormwater, with traffic, and the different people and said, what can we do to make sure we're in good shape? Because we don't want to invest in this property if it's going to be a problem. If there's any problem, we want to know now, and we'll walk away. With that, we came to this body for a plan review, I think October, about a year ago, and asked those same questions and said, hey, if there are any problems, please let us know. And if there are, we don't want to create issues. And I don't like people being mad at me, so I want people to be happy. And we want to work with the neighborhood. If this does work out, we want to work with the neighborhood and be cooperative and not adversarial. But that being said, the facts are the property was zoned R2. It is zoned R2. We were given, what we thought was a pretty good approval, and we went to work with the county, with the city, and the staff to meet their requirements. And we worked for a year to do that. Since then, we've purchased the property and invested heavily into that based on our understanding of the process. And again, I do want to just reiterate, our goal is not to mess up North Augusta or Chanticleer. We love Chanticleer. We think it's a great subdivision. We feel so strongly about that we want to invest in it. We have invested in it. It only helps us if not only does our development do well, but also the residents there are happy too. And so we're interested in that. We want to work towards that. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, and she can give you some more of the detailed points.
I'm going to discuss some of the more technical things and what's all in this subdivision so everyone can understand. This property was annexed to
Excuse me.
Chanticleer.
Excuse me, Alex, if you could give your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Alexandra Reynolds, 1296 Broad Street, Augusta, Georgia. So, as I was saying, this property was annexed to Chanticleer in 1991. It is evident by the utility stub-outs and the dead end without a cul-de-sac at Big Pine Road that this parcel of land was intended to be developed. This proposed development happens to be 21 years after that, not to 2 years as is typical. This project, Renfield, would be the first conservation subdivision in the city of North Augusta. It was wise of the Planning Commission to include conservation subdivisions as a category in the development code, because otherwise land like this subject parcel with prohibitive topography and wetlands would almost certainly never be developed. The property will be developed in accordance with North Augusta's conservation subdivision design standards. 81 out of the 127 planned homes will abut a conservation area. We're required to have 40%, we have 63%. 43% of the property is dedicated conservation area or public open space, and only 40% is required. The site will not be mass graded from property line to property line, as some subdivisions are. The only grading on this site will be for the road right-of-ways and the lots. Grading will not occur in the conservation areas, wetlands, or wetland buffers. All wetlands are surrounded by undisturbed natural 30-foot buffers. Renfield's proposed density is similar to the adjoining Chanticleer neighborhood. Renfield lots are a quarter of an acre with an average of 50 feet of frontage and 200 feet of depth. Chanticleer lots average about a third of an acre with 80 to 85 feet of frontage and 150 feet of depth. There are 57 existing homes and 3 vacant parcels in Chanticleer, and Renfield will add 127 homes. This means there will be 184 households that will use the intersection of Southwood Road and Martintown Road. While this will impact traffic at the intersection, a traffic study has deemed that a traffic light is not warranted. The traffic engineer,
Okay, excuse me. So I need you all to be respectful and for us to not do that, because we don't want anybody to do that when we come to the microphone. So need you all to try really hard to please. Okay,
This microphone is a little short.
okay, okay. So if you could please speak further into the mic. Thank you.
The traffic engineer who performed this study is present tonight and can speak to this later if needed. Oh, that would be, yeah. In comparison, the nearby Rapids development has 286 households that enter Martintown Road from a single access point without a stoplight at River Bluff Drive, which is 102 households more than what is proposed to be at the Southwood and Martintown intersection after this development is built. Due to topography, the layout shown on your screen minimizes grading, wetland disturbance, and stream intrusion. The existing stream crossing on the property is planned to be improved. No additional stream crossings are proposed. A connection to Shawnee Drive was studied but deemed unsuitable. Making this connection would necessitate another stream crossing, which brings more environmental issues to be mitigated, and that is trying to be avoided. A crossing at Shawnee Drive would result in a maximum longitudinal grade of greater than 25%, with poor vertical geometry in order to make the crossing work. And that's on your screen now. Per the North Augusta Development Code, the maximum longitudinal grade is 15% for local streets maintained by SCDOT and 12% for local streets maintained by North Augusta. As such, the crossing would not be deemed suitable by North Augusta's engineers, since it would fall outside of what is allowed by design standards. A variance for road steepness would need to be sought to build this crossing, and the owner does not wish to have this stream crossing or pursue a variance for it. Additionally, conservation subdivisions aim to protect natural areas on a property, and adding a crossing to Shawnee Drive is not in line with this principle. The engineer who conducted the stream crossing study is present tonight and can speak to this further if needed. Per City of North Augusta Engineering Department request, 5.55 acres of the conservation area are being offered to the city for a future regional detention pond. And can you go back to the... This is the area on the right of your screen that's hatched with the honeycomb. So this would be a future regional detention pond to improve the water quality of the area. To be clear, this is a City of North Augusta request, and any future project and permitting required on that 5.55 acres would be handled exclusively by the city. Pursuing a conservation subdivision does relax certain development requirements. The only development requirement that this layout does not meet is the connectivity ratio. But per ordinance, the connectivity ratio does not apply for conservation subdivisions. As such, a connection to Shawnee Drive is not required. Apart from the waiver request to lengthen the two cul-de-sacs to the maximum length allowed per code because of existing site topography, all other development requirements of R10 zoning had been adhered to. Lastly, this conservation subdivision neighborhood is planned to be built on land already zoned for the purpose of a single-family neighborhood, and it is one of the last large parcels within city limits zoned for this purpose. The land currently has access to utilities, is close to established churches, schools, and businesses, and will provide homes to 127 families who wish to call North Augusta home. For all the reasons I have named over the past few minutes, I respectfully ask that the Planning Commission approve this conservation subdivision plan. Thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant at this point?
Would, Alex, would you be able to address the traffic study?
And before he comes up, are there any other questions for?
No.
Okay.
I actually have a question. I know you said there'd be minimal to not much grading. What about the trees that are already there? Well, I know sometimes you go in completely clear cut. Will there be any chance to save any trees that are already there?
So all the trees in the conservation area, that's not being touched at all. They're all staying. There were a few trees that we flagged in the survey as worth saving, and we were able to save not all of them, but I want to say like 70% or so. So some of these lots will have larger trees on them.
But the ideal is not to, where the houses are gonna set to be graded, slab on grade. That is not the intent. Is that what you're saying for the most part?
Well, the lots will be cleared, but beyond, it's not, we're not going the whole property just clear cutting. It's just where the roads are and where the lot lines are. Outside of those private property lines, what is going to be the conservation open space, that's not going to be graded.
So your ideal is for production building or custom home building? How, have you gotten that far yet?
I think most are slab on grade, I believe. Yeah, with
Yes.
some basement
If
lots.
you could answer, please.
So we don't know exactly yet, but there will be some basement lots and mostly slab on grade as well, but some basement lots as well.
All right, Commissioner Baker, did you have a question?
Yeah, and you addressed the concerns with Shawnee, and, you know, if the engineer's here to talk about that, I'd kind of like to hear a little bit more about that. But could you also just kind of quickly address why you didn't, or what you looked at as far as accessing through Greenwood and, I can't find the other name of the street that connects kind of into that property, just above, crossing Big Pine up there?
Both of those streets, Greenwood and I think Southwood, they both run into wetlands. Yeah, and the property at Greenwood is where the regional detention pond was requested by the city. So not only could it not be used, it's going to be used maybe in the future for the city use.
All right, so we've had, thank you. So I think we've had a request for the traffic engineer to come up, as well as the engineer that could speak to the connectivity piece around Shawnee and the wetlands. So I think if we could have the traffic engineer, please. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm Steve Castle, 1557 Broad Street, Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, can you just give me an overview? I was reading through it. It's a lot of technical writing, so I got right to the summary. So can you just give us an overview of what you have to take?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's no secret what the traffic's like on Martintown Road. Y'all drive it every day. But, you know, the addition of the homes from this development coming in through Southwood is going to add about 90 cars to that intersection coming out. Well, it's, yeah,
Again,
I mean,
again,
Tell me
if you all,
what the joke is.
okay, all comments have to be directed towards me.
okay.
And we, again, need this to be orderly. Let me say this. I'm trying to accommodate everybody, but this has to be orderly. And so as such, please direct all comments to me, and you have to be on the microphone with your name and address, not only so that the folks in the room can hear, but those in Facebook, so that it can be documented properly. So we please, again, need to maintain order. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, for the traffic study, typically you look at the AM rush hour and the evening rush hour. And so what you're looking at is what the capacity is coming in and out of the development. Like I said, it will generate about 90 vehicles in the morning, and that's split between coming in and out. Most of them will be coming out at that time. In the evening, it's about 120, and most of those will be coming in, turning off at Martintown Road. On a daily basis, you're probably looking at about 1,200, maybe a little bit more than that. But that's, you know, 24 hours is spread open. You know, I know we talked about, I heard this conversation about traffic signal. You know, a traffic signal, you know, for development of this size, I mean, you're looking at, you need to look at 8-hour volumes where you would need about 150 coming in and out per hour for about 8 hours. And there's a 4-hour volume. As much as, like, I'm sure that there's some times when it might be, you know, when you're frustrated with the time, but if you project that out to like 9 o'clock at night when you usually don't have a problem, you would be waiting a lot longer than you would normally. And so there's some, you know, some off-peak implications of a traffic signal, plus the fact that, you know, you have the maintenance and everything else. Now, there may be a time where you may need a traffic signal other than just for cars coming out of here, whether it be progression on Martintown Road as you really start to urbanize. But for now, you know, it's not likely warranted. But, you know, for the most part, this is about a typical impact of what a residential development coming on a road like Martintown Road. There's going to be some period of time we have to wait to come out, but there's also some times where you could. You also have a left turn lane that's refuge to turn out, you know, that people use as sort of a continuous green T kind of thing, a two-step left turn. But other than that, it was I didn't really see anything other than there's a need for a right turn lane now coming northbound on the other side on Curtis, but, and then that just meets the warrants. But other than that, it's,
Mr. Paradise was trying to explain to me the design of the road where you got a right turn and a left turn. What's the design of the entrance? Can you help me with that a little bit? So there's one coming in and one coming out? Is that going to be the design, or is it going to be
yeah, it was the.
left turn and the right turn?
There's currently a left turn lane coming in. There's not a decel lane coming.
No. When you're exiting the neighborhood, it had in your analysis, it had the right lane is much faster because you come in and you go out right. And you have a left lane, 2 lanes going out, and it's harder to get out, which was a far longer wait time. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, if you added a right turn lane coming out, obviously you're going to add some efficiency to that. But most of the delay was associated with left turns coming out.
But am I reading that correctly, Mr. Paradise? Did I read that improper?
Which page are you looking at?
Which page are you? If you could speak in your mic, Commissioner Key, as well, because you're.
I'm trying to answer the question.
Your recommendations is what he's talking about.
Which page was it?
This is on page 22. It says the delays are primarily due to the relatively heavy volume of traffic along Martintown Road and can be improved somewhat by restriping these approaches to separate left turn and right turn to allow the right turn to go around the Q left turning
Okay.
vehicle.
I got what you're saying.
Okay.
You had me confused on it.
Yeah, then it says, however, this will still result in a LOSF.
For the left turns, when you look at level service F, and I hate to say this, but I hate the way that they do the A, B, C, D, and E, and F, because it's really an average delay per vehicle. And when you look at, one car waiting 60 seconds, that's a level of service F, is one car, compared to 1,200 on Martintown Road. So when you start looking at delay and looking at, but that's what we're stuck with in the industry, so. But yeah, so what you have is you have a period of time where somebody's turning left, so people are all queued up behind them, and then left turns waiting, and they go, and then all the right turns can go. So sometimes just giving a little strike, a little cue to get them over to the left so that the right turns can go around them, that can help sometimes. And that's what that meant by that statement.
Yeah, I understood what it meant, but that is going to be the design, that is a remedy, or
Yes, that could be addressed.
is that a recommendation?
That was not a recommendation from the planning department. That would be a condition that the planning commission would need to add to it.
All right, so if we could just clarify for everybody, you're talking about the striping so that it separates basically left and right and to encourage what we were just referring to. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That would mean that the road is wide enough to accommodate 2 exiting lanes. And the one that's going right, of course, will be quicker because they're looking at one direction.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, and then I think Commissioner Bigger had a question about the, okay. So if you could come up to the mic again and please give your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Will Buchanan. My address is 195 Hickory Road, Aiken, South Carolina. And if we could get back to the profile sheet, I think that's what you were getting at with your question. Do you want me to begin?
Yeah,
Or
sorry,
did
go
you
ahead.
have a specific question, or do you just want me to kind of
Just a
talk
little
through?
more elaboration on the,
Okay.
the issue with trying to connect to Shawnee.
So on the left side of the profile here, that represents the end of Shawnee. The dashed line type there shows the existing topography, which is pretty extreme. And The goal of this exhibit was to show if we did extend Shawnee, what would it look like and how would it compare with the City of North Augusta roadway standards as far as maximum longitudinal slope and minimum curvature and that sort of thing. And so we just drew this to show it. This design does not come anywhere close to meeting the City of North Augusta roadway standards. That's not to say that you couldn't do it, but if you were to do it, it would look a lot different than this. You'd probably be looking at 25 or 30 feet of fill in that creek, which totally flies in the face of the conservation approach that we're going for. We showed a 54-inch culvert pipe in this location. That was not studied, but that was based on the closest upstream pipe in that creek. So that would need to be looked at to see if that's sufficiently sized. That's the gist of what we were trying to show here, is what if Shawnee were extended.
Anything else?
Great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. All right, and so applicant, thank you, applicant. So what we're going to do now is we'll take questions from the community. Again, please be brief and succinct so that your neighbors have an opportunity. What we'll, if there are any, we will ask the applicant to come back and address all of the questions at one time before we as a commission discuss and have our vote. So if you could, again, if you're a member of the community and would like to come up, please give your name, address, speak into the microphone, and be considerate of your fellow neighbors. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Denise Wellis, and I live at 785 Big Pine. So we will be pretty much, very much impacted by this development, which I'm not 100% opposed to. Just have a few questions. I know we've hit on the traffic study, but my one question is, when was it performed? Was it during school? Was school in operation? Can we, as a community or as the neighborhood, get a copy of this traffic study? We've talked about what improvements are being made at the intersection of Martintown Road. And I see that they said that there's no warrant for a red light, but I would disagree with that. So, no entrance point, sorry. Are there any plans for amenities to be built, or have they already got an HOA? Sorry, reading my notes. Will they establish a HOA, and will there be an amenity built? And if there is, would the existing neighborhood have the option to be a part of that? That may be like a discounted price or something like that, or cost. She hit on some of my other things. When these homes are built, will they have a specific setback to the road? How close will they be to the road? Who is the builder? Let's see. Do we know what the estimated sales price of these homes are going to be? Maybe the square footage? And that's pretty much all I got that they haven't talked about.
All right, thank you, Ms. Willis. We appreciate you. All right. Anyone else from the community that has a question that Mrs. Willis did not ask?
My name is Eddie Hip. Eddie Hip. I live at number 1 Pinewood Court, which is the first house on the left as you enter Chanticleer. I guess I have more comments than I do questions. First thing that pops up is that we have no sidewalks in Chanticleer. We have quite a few residents that either walk or run the streets. I have a big concern that these extra added cars will create a dangerous situation for all of us that are out exercising. One of the other issues is the exit. Can I submit a picture?
Mr. Paradise, if you could give it to him and he'll bring it up.
This picture shows, and by the way, this picture, I'm standing in my driveway when that picture was taken. And I would disagree that there's room for 2 lanes of traffic. It's a very narrow entrance and exit. Our brick wall in the center has been knocked down twice by vehicles not being able to make the turn. And with more and more vehicles added, I believe that is in danger of happening again. I've got one more. The area that I've outlined in blue is my driveway. I am right there at the exit, and I have a fear that traffic will start getting backed up so that I can't even get out of my driveway. So I would strongly encourage you to turn down this proposal or see if there's some other means of ingress or egress to the area. And I don't understand how adding 127 homes will only produce an extra 90 vehicles. That just doesn't compute in my mind. So I'd like to hear someone explain that. I was looking at more like 200 vehicles. The other thing that my wife just mentioned is school buses. School buses do not currently run into Chanticleer. If this proposal is added, are the kids going to have to walk all the way to Martintown Road to catch the school bus? That should be another issue that is considered before a vote. Making that picture that I submitted. Making a left turn out of Chanticleer right now is in between difficult and impossible. Chanticleer is right on the curve in Martintown. Our sight distance when trying to exit is very short. And as you know, people coming off of I-20 are not going 40 miles an hour as posted. They're more likely going 60 to 70. And especially there are many semi-trucks that aren't even traveling close to that speed. So if this is approved, we need some sort of traffic relief, be it a traffic signal or whatever else that could be done. But it's bad now, and with 127 additional homes, it's just going to get worse. And I think that's all my comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hipp, and we also received a copy of your letter to Mr. Paradise as well. So, all right, thank you. All right. All right. No, sir, did you want the mic brought to you, or would you prefer to come down? Okay, all right.
Let's see, I'm Garrick Malott, 783 Big Pine Road. I'm one of the guys going to be most impacted by this, it looks like. And I know one thing's gonna sound kind of petty, but they did mismark my property on the backside where they're gonna be putting this in. But the other thing too, most of this stuff already been covered by my fellow residents, but have they also done an archaeological study? That whole place is loaded with artifacts. Pottery, stone tools. I've got a whole closet full came up from 1985 when they did the first clear cut. Have they done a survey of that? There's also fire pits down there from those times. It's gonna be, they're gonna do something to see if there's anything of value there for the Native American culture. But like I said, most of the work has been covered. That traffic thing is gonna be miserable. It's already said there's a limited view coming from I-20, and they are going real fast. I guess I haven't much more to say. But could someone check out on the property issue? Because I said when they came through to mark the property, I told them they were putting the pin in the correct place. They told me, take it up with the city.
So the developer is here, Mr. Millett, and so he's heard that, and so we'll ask that when they respond to everyone else, that they respond to that question, even if it is to let you know when you all can discuss
They're
it.
taking away half my driveway
Okay.
by mismarking it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, sir, come on down, please. Or would you prefer the mic? Okay.
Hi, I'm Wade Whitaker, 787 Big Pine Road. And I have two questions and then a couple of comments from an environmental perspective. I was the Director of Environmental Compliance at the Savannah River site for the Department of Energy for many years. So from that perspective, I'll be asking a few questions, making a few comments. My first question, I think the audience would be interested in this. I haven't heard the answer yet, which is, I think it was stated that last month there was a vote on this proposal. It was 2-2, so it was denied. And I wonder what changed since then in 1 month to allow a second vote. That's perplexing to me. My next question is, the term conservation approach has been used. Sounds pretty, doesn't it? Conservation approach. But if you look at the picture, the habitat is destroyed. It's houses, it's streets, it's gone. There's nowhere for critters to live. So I think that's very misleading. So I would like somebody to address that definition. Another thing was the 127 units. I agreed with the previous comment. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be in the neighborhood of, to me, maybe if each house has 2 vehicles, pretty typical. That's 260 vehicles. On our street, there's 2 and 3 per on our street. It's pretty typical, so I think there's a lot more vehicles. What does that translate to? Does your car not leak oil? Radiator fluid? Streets, driveway, right? We got the streams. We've got runoff from storms. Where does it go? To the streams, so they will be impacted. There will be runoff. Remember, they're going to change the topography significantly, so there'll be a lot of sediment in the streams. So there is some destruction there. So that needed to be considered. Also, what else is going to be discharged to these streams from these 127 units? Fertilizers, insecticide, pesticides. So that's all going to be directly discharged to the stream and into the Savannah River, which is a drinking water source for our downstream neighbors. So that needed to be considered. Another thing I would like to be considered also, and it's been mentioned, is wetlands. Again, it will be destroyed. And those wetlands are part of a habitat for many critters. We've got foxes, we've got deers, we've got raccoons, we've got owls, we've got red-tailed hawks, we've got vultures. And I love the foxes that I've seen out there, and even turkeys once. So it's going to destroy that habitat. I invite you guys to take a walk. It's 2 beautiful little streams. a lot of critters to see. I jumped a deer last time I was out there. It was awesome. So it's going to destroy that habitat. Let's be frank with each other. It's houses versus an ecosystem. And who usually wins? Houses, but maybe not this time. Another thing I would like to address is, and it was addressed a little before, it was alluded to, which is Native American artifacts. Actually, the law is the Native American Graves and Repatriation Act. So it means you find the Native Americans that are buried there, you're going to have to go and find out which Native Americans claim that area as their ancestral, and they get to rebury them if they want. Could that happen? The next subdivision over is a road called Indian Graves Road. My understanding was that there were remains found in neighboring neighborhoods. So there does need to be a survey. Probably USC would do it, I'm guessing, because there is a ton of artifacts that I found on my property and others have in their neighborhood. And if you walk down there, you'll see pieces of flakes where they were making their tools and projectile points. So there are a lot of environmental laws and other associated laws that I wonder, have they really been addressed? And the other thing was, again, we're going to save some trees, but 30% of the probably hardwoods not. That sounds a little on the nuke side to me. No, we're not going to do Kmart, which they do nuke it. And then they put one tree up and go, look what we did. So I'm suggesting that it will look nothing like it did before. The topography also will be significantly changed, as you can imagine. And so anyway, just a few observations and a few comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. All right. All right. Are there any other comments or questions that you would like to add? Okay, we have two, I think two more, and then three more, and then, okay. And again, please make sure that you're asking new questions or sharing new perspectives to make time for those who may have such.
Delia Newton, 1456 Southwood Drive. First house on the right when you come into subdivision. When I moved here, and now, we moved here, my husband and I moved here to Chanticleer because it was quiet. It was peaceful. It had trees. We liked that. We have a lot of people that walk, children, ride their bikes. We have people from other neighborhoods come there and walk our streets. I don't know how they're going to be safe up here at the exit, which obviously y'all forget that people don't just go right and left. They go straight across to Curtis. Curtis comes straight across to us. Curtis can't get out. You should come and see them at 3:30 in the afternoon. Those poor people sit there for 30 minutes or more sometime. They can't get out because of the traffic. And we do go across the street. Needless to believe, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm very upset about all of this. As you may be able to tell, we will lose our wildlife, as they were just talking about. They're going to clear cut. We have deer, we have rabbit, all the other things this gentleman just mentioned. Once again, I will say to traffic, we need a light. If you don't know that, you don't live there. I don't want to lose my yard. I'm the first house on the right when you come in. Are you going to be taking my yard next to put another lane there? Or are you going to put a sidewalk there? I would go for a sidewalk probably, because I don't want people to get killed trying to walk around our neighborhood. I sit outside by myself after dark. I like it because I feel safe and I can do it. It's still a free country for now. Maybe not for much longer, but for now. I don't know how safe I'm going to feel to do that with 127 more homes up there with people. And who thinks that they have one car for 127 homes? Are you an idiot?
Okay, so ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We need everybody to be respectful.
I'm staying in my 3 minutes, aren't I?
Yes, ma'am, but we still needed to be respectful of those who spoke. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Whatever. You know what
I
I'm
know
right.
I know that you.
I'm right.
I know that you're passionate, but we just need to not.
Well, I'm right.
Not call folks names.
You haven't even heard me. We need another entrance and another exit if you're going to do this to us. Okay, I'm just going to leave this with something that Simon and Garfunkel said a while back. A lot of you young people won't know this, but a lot of us old ones will. They paved paradise and they put up a damn parking lot.
All right. Okay. I think we have two gentlemen on that side. The gentleman, yeah, whichever one.
My name is John E. Sanders. I'm at 803 Greenwood Drive. I've been living in Chanticleer since 1989. When I moved here in 1984, I looked at North Augusta entirely, looked at several areas, several subdivisions. And what struck me more about Chanticleer was it was serene, peaceful, quiet. Schools were closed, that I could walk at night, any time of night. I'm a pancreatic cancer survivor, so when I walk slow. And I like where I walk around the neighborhood a lot. And I walk down the end of Big Pine and make a left and make the circle and don't go down, and that's where you guys gonna build at. And it's a special place for me because it's so serene. There's a lot of artifacts because me and my grandchildren used to walk down there to that creek that they're talking about and pick up rocks and stones from down there. The other piece about it is I'm a big avid fan of birds. I love nature. There's two big woodpeckers, the large woodpeckers, that habitat back there.
Sir, I need you to.
I understand. I'm just.
Okay. I know.
So if you build that, that's going to endanger their habitat, and they are already an endangered species, as it is. And they take home back in those trees back there. I can hear them doing in the morning. And it's a pleasant sound because I sit on my porch to drink my coffee and I listen to them. In fact, I had them to actually come up in my yard about a month ago. It was so amazing. I'd never seen that before. And it was so fascinating to me. And the other thing I'm going to piggyback off, like others have said, is the traffic is already horrific. Every morning I drive my son to North Augusta High School. So I come out of Southwood and go straight across to Curtis. And all we do is, son, let's pray that we make it cross. I don't try to make a left turn because that's always, they come off the curb, like I said, like it's the Autobahn. And it's dangerous. So adding 127 more adjacent homes, it's just going to literally back up, and till the buses can't get out. If there's an emergency, if there's an egress issue, you got all these cars backed up trying to get out because you can't make the left turn in the mornings and the afternoons. It's literally almost like life or death. In essence, I'm not against building because we got to build to accommodate growth and everything else. But let's build where everyone is respected, and conservation is so important because I enjoy nature. I got to stay on that for a while. I love nature. And North Augusta has a lot of nature, the rabbit, the foxes. These deers that walk down the street at night. In Southwood, they literally walk down the middle of the street. So I know we got to build, but let's build with nature and build everybody together. We can't build and just let nature and don't remain cognizant of the artifacts and the relics that people cherish. I just wish we could come to a happy medium. Everyone can be happy, but that's not always the case. Thank y'all.
All right, thank you. All right. And so, in general, we've had, in big buckets, some concerns about the ecology, birds, habitat, wildlife, sidewalks, traffic, I think the environmental concerns. We have a property question, archaeological pieces, and then I think some questions and some clarity around the traffic study, and I think how that is computed. And Ms. Willis had some questions that were definitely different around existing neighborhood setbacks and so forth. So if you're asking something different, please come forward and share. Thank you.
My name is Zachary Llewellyn. I live on 791 Big Pine Road. It's the left-hand side as you go down towards where they're going to be doing the work. It's right on that curve, right past it. First, I want to just focus on a quick thing. When I don't think it's mentioned so far is the width of Big Pine Road. It's not wide enough because people do have friends or family who do park on the side of that street, on the curb. And try getting, a FedEx truck through there is sometimes difficult for them, let alone if it's during a peak time for someone's birthday or someone's having an event, football for one. You may have too many cars aside for people to try to transport all these materials. It's going to get too close. Not to mention, it's not wide enough to have more of that traffic. There's no sidewalks. People are walking next to that street. You have to share it. You got to drive slow. And those who are, don't live there, have been there like myself, it's difficult to sit there and think about all that traffic going through and people being in danger. I work IT, so a lot of it is away from nature. And I work from home a lot as well. So I can attest to everyone who's spoken behind me in regards to seeing them across Big Pine Road. A lot of people live there. They walk down my street. I see them pass by. Now, I'm the guy, unfortunately, a little creeper in the top, looking out the window and watching progress bars move. But I am working, and sometimes a lot of that is just me kind of relaxing, and I look out the window and I see families walking their dogs almost every day, almost every night even. People jogging like that gentleman there. I've seen him jog or walk or all these activities from all these people. I see it. I witness it. It's going to be a shame because if this happens, I'm not going to see a lot of these people feel safe walking there again. Lastly, I'd like to just take this time to acknowledge where I came from. I'm originally from Arizona. And if you ever lived there, it's a lot of this. There's no life. It's adobe homes, brick by brick. It's all exactly the same. So coming out here was a lot different. We were looking for a house. We were living in an apartment, me and my wife. And when we found this home, this neighborhood, I fell in love. It was between this and a home, a pre-built home in front of the base. We know how long we're going to stay. And when I went to my yard and I went down to the bottom of that yard and I looked up and saw those trees and heard those birds, I was just life-taking. It just brought so much life into my world. I could not even imagine it. And we bought that house on the spot. We put our offer in. We bought that. That tear down, this building is going to jeopardize a lot of that. If I'm not mistaken, one of the photos shows behind that forest lot that I have. Is my yard is there, but it's surrounded by all these trees and forest. There's planning some development or something with a pond behind that. That's going to directly affect our yard. So I want a lot of these things to be taken into account of. I bring up more, but I think everyone else has been more well-spoken on some of those topics, so I'll leave you guys with that.
Thank you, Mr. Llewellyn.
My name is Maria Diddy. I live at 804 Big Pine Road. My maiden name is Strickland, and the reason I bring that up is my father is the developer, was the developer of Chanticleer, the entire subdivision. I grew up with him when he bought the land. He was building the very first house. I toured with him almost every single home that was built in Chanticleer. So when he passed away, unfortunately, we did not get to finish the neighborhood. And as was stated earlier, the neighborhood intended to be completed in the back section. If I had grown up to be a developer, I would have continued the work that he had started. If my sister had been a developer, she would have continued the neighborhood. It was never intended to be just that first small section. That was not what it was. And if you look at the zoning that North Augusta has, it shows that the whole entire area was zoned for single-family homes. So again, that's it. I mean, I get that some of my neighbors enjoyed walking in the woods back there, and my sister and I allowed them to do that. We took the risk if someone got hurt that we would be responsible for that, but it was, we let them do it. And I get that they're sad that they won't be able to do it anymore. I understand that. But again, if either my sister or myself had been developers, there would have been homes back there already. So I understand that they're sad, but the intent of the neighborhood from the beginning was to be built and to be a larger neighborhood than what they moved into. I just wanted to make that point known. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diddy. All right. And I think we have one more comment, and then we'll allow the applicants to come up and respond to all of your questions and concerns.
My name is Judy Berry. I live at 4 Pinewood Court, North Augusta, in the Chanticleer subdivision. I only found out about this 2 days ago, so this was really kind of a shock. And I don't mean to be repeating anything, but the highway situation is very, very urgent, and personally urgent. I have told my granddaughter that I will die. That is where I will die. I have come so close. Cars are coming, just coming. I'm trying to make a right-hand turn. I look. Okay, you've looked long enough now. You just got to go. You got to get groceries. You got to go. And so I get out there. They're right up behind me, blowing the horn, slamming on the brakes. Oh, mad, just mad. They look at me like, oh, woman. I mean, we need to have a red light there. We need to have one, period. That is very, very important. There is too much traffic in there, going back and forth. It's coming off the interstate, and they said, well, we talked about it before. Oh, well, we're gonna slow it down. We're gonna slow it down right there when they get off the interstate. There's no slow down on the interstate. I drive it to the mall all the time. I come out, I'm still going 45, and then I see the 40 sign, and I go down to the 40. We need a red light. Okay, that's number one, even though that was a repeat. Okay, since I did find out about this, I've been told that the Rapids, and it was this letter this was put around our neighborhood, the Rapids didn't want it, so they got knocked out. 2 weeks, last month, this thing was canceled. It was how did it come back up? How did it come back up? It was canceled. It was turned down. How does it come back up? That's what I would like to know, how it came back up. Why is it now open again for a vote? It was canceled. Okay, whatever. All right, the Rapids didn't want it, so they nixed that. Could that be because the Rapids has more money than the people who live in our neighborhood? Maybe they didn't want all those nice old houses up there to be, bothered with, and even though they have less people than we do. Okay, we're going to go again with how this turned out. We got to be connected somehow to Martintown Road. What about this True North? We're down here where the True North Church is. There's no way you can fix it off of True North True North. There's no connection there anywhere that you can work this into the Martintown Road. We have to get into Martintown Road, but it must. They got all that property down there. What happened to that? Why can't we do that? All right, we went across the red light, and we went across the Rapids, and Brook Green. I was heard that Brook Green was also offered up. They wouldn't go through Brook Green. Now they come to us. Is it because we're not as high class, or I have a real hard problem with the people next door to us on that road, on the Martintown Road, which is Leyland. They have maybe 12 houses in their neighborhood, yet they have a nice way to get out, both left and right. We got no way to get out. We got to take our lives in our hands. And I told my granddaughter, this will be it. This will be it. This is where they will pick me up. This is where they will take me to the hospital, to the morgue. This will be goodbye. Need a red light.
Thank you. All right, and so Again, I recapped not too long ago, the buckets, and I think the additional question of Mr. Llewellyn around the width of Big Pine Road and as well as the yard. I think Ms. Berry's question about, I guess, previous opportunities, which, so if the applicants could please, and I don't know in which order you all want to respond to things. Okay, I'm sorry, so, okay, all right, so let me give, all right, so I'm sorry, I didn't see you, so we'll do, okay? All right, because let me say this, I will have 2 more comments, very brief, new information, please, and that is it. So this is, okay, so the last 2, please come forward, be brief and new. Ma'am, are you coming? Thank you. Yes, sir. No, sir, I can't, from the mic, I cannot respond to questions and voices from the audience. It's not, in addition to maintaining order, it also has to be, your neighbors in North Augusta need to be able to hear as well, and in Facebook. And so need you to have to come to the mic, and we've got 2, you've made your, shared your opinions and questions. So, ma'am, okay. So, ma'am, if you could, sir, ma'am, please allow your neighbor to share her opinions. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Does he need time?
No, ma'am, that's not, I'm allowing people who haven't spoken, and so I'm giving it to you. So please, you have the mic.
My name is Danielle Hurt, 791 Greenwood Drive. I hear I'm getting a retention pond. I wrote down a few things that you should know. I'm going to read them off despite. My home is ramjacked, and everything around me is sinking. Woo! The ground is sand, and it's unstable. That is probably an environmental issue a retention pond should address. There is a sinkhole in my front yard. I don't know what to do with it. I was reassured by the city that other people have worse ones. Waterways will always find their way home. They will speak for themselves on that one. It's unethical to move them. We will be trapped on our street from backed up traffic if you consider doing this. It is a double blind left turn with traffic coming off of I-20, and our police are missing. They're not slowing them down anymore. They used to. I used to could call and say, I can't get out of my neighborhood, and we would get help. I say the angel of God prayer at the entrance of the neighborhood every single time I leave it, because I might be leaving this earth. And my children say it with me. It's not adults, it's families. Starting construction without this red light will put us in mortal danger. That is a lot of traffic to do construction. My family is construction. I know. It lacks integrity to say yes to this on all of you. Knowing this makes every accident at this entrance attempted murder if you say yes to this, because you are risking our lives and our children. And what is this going to do to our property value? Every neighbor in here has stated, we moved here because of the sanctuary. Okay, great. You know, when was the project stopped? And when did the man die? There might be another reason it got stopped. And some of those reasons might have been revealed today. So you have something else to think about. It's important. I have a few questions that I gained while listening to this meeting. I want to know when in the timeline was this traffic study conducted? Was it during COVID when everyone was at home? Because that would make a difference. But we're not at home anymore. We need a new traffic study, a real traffic study. Why should your project negatively affect us, our lives, our property value, and what we hold value and dear by living there? We can move somewhere that has what you're offering, but we didn't pay to live in that. We paid to live in what we paid to live in. Are you going to reimburse us for that? Shawnee or bust? How much more does Shawnee cost to do? Let's talk about the real reason we need Chanticleer. Boom.
Thank you. Ma'am? No, next, the last speaker. Oh, okay.
My name is Whitney Schaffer. I'll be really brief. I have 2 children that attend school in the area. My biggest concern now, and I'm not sure if it's been addressed, is the student-to-teacher ratio, the lack of buses. I know that's briefly been mentioned. But also, Hammond Hill currently, because we have very limited buses, it is a 45-minute wait to pick up our children each day from the time, that's from 2:30 when they're released till we're getting out of there. So there's definitely a concern for me on the student-to-teacher ratio. I know that the average in South Carolina is recommended to be 1 teacher per 21 students. The average in South Carolina right now is 1 to 14. When I looked it up this morning, at Hammond Hill, we're already at above the average at 1 to 15. Paul Knox is at 1 to 19, and North Augusta is 1 to 18. So my concern is how this is going to overwhelm the schools and the traffic that's already an absolute horror out there. So I'd just like that to be addressed, please.
Thank you. All right. Now, if the applicant could come forward and please address the questions, and if you all can decide amongst yourselves who goes first and which
Sure. I mean,
questions.
I'd like to take time to try to properly address every question, even if there are things that are, ultimately disagreed upon, and try to figure ways to solve those.
So the figuring, so want you to present and to answer questions and to figure out and to think on ways to solve it, but the back and forth, and it sounds like the conversations that may need to take place between you.
Sure, absolutely, and that would be, so I'd like to make some general statements. I think it'd be best if we could just have some factual timelines about the traffic study and those procedural things.
You want to do those first, and then you.
And then I'll come and
Okay,
address
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I need to restate my name again?
Yes, please, just for.
Steve Castle, 1557 Broad Street, Augusta, Georgia. Yeah, for the traffic study, it was done this year. March 8th, 2022 is when we did the data collection out there, where we go out there and count the cars. You count them for 2 hours, you get the rush hour. A lot of comments about the amount of morning cars coming in there. Well, you're looking at 1 hour. Most of the peak hour goes over, the peak period, may go 2 to 3 hours, but you're looking for the highest hour. So that's when that 90 accounts for. I leave earlier than my neighbor. He may leave an hour later, but same thing with the grocery store. Nobody goes to the grocery store at the same time. But the 90 is during the peak hour. It's not a test of, I'm saying that there's only 90 cars going to be in 127 homes. It's based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which is it's the accepted standard nationwide on how to project traffic from any kind of land use, not just single-family homes. And if you want to know the truth, I found that it overestimates traffic for around here. That's just a side. I could probably show you why the counts coming out there now are actually less than what ITE would project. So this is a worst-case scenario. It said it was done during school on a Tuesday. You do not do, unless you're doing a commercial development, you would only do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because that is what's considered a typical weekday. You don't do it on Fridays, Mondays, that's when most people call in sick or whatever, and then it's less. But that's industry standard for how you do it. As far as the traffic light or traffic signal, red light, I've heard it referred to as several different things. I refer to it as a traffic signal. I was asked my opinion on whether it would be warranted. My opinion is it would not likely be warranted. However, it is not my decision. It would be the South Carolina Department of Transportation. That's their roadway. They manage the permitting of it. But I can look at the MUTCD, which is the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It has 9 signal warrants, one of them being volume, one of them being delay. And that's the study you would perform. Looking at the volumes that are there now, plus what's projected, it's very rare to see a residential development of this size trigger something like that without some commercial office component on top of it, especially for just peak hour traffic, considering that you got to look at the impact of a traffic signal being there all day. It'd be the same thing as putting a 4-way stop. Like it's going to be there all day. And I realize that there's some days you may need it. You think it's frustrating, and I can appreciate it. I got the same thing in my neighborhood. And I pick and take. I do everything everybody else does. I do live in a house, and I do have a daughter who's going to school who doesn't want to be here tonight, but my wife's out of town. But I was not asked to do something special for this development to make it less impactful. Everything I've done is what I've done for 20 years. Looking at this, I do understand it. If I was my neighborhood, I would have a concern about it too. I walk along neighborhoods. Yes, there's traffic, there's cars, there's people walking on the street, just like mine. And every once in a while, one will buzz me that I don't like. And I've got words and gestures that kind of approach that and make me feel better about my life afterwards. But it is what it is. But I look at it, and there's. I feel that what we do is.
And I'm not sure if who will respond. I think there were some questions around the width of Big Pine and some of those entrance and exit. Okay, so if you'll do that. All right, thank you.
Okay, so there's obviously a few things we need to go over to cover many concerns and many legitimate concerns of the neighborhood. The first thing I kind of want to address is the conversation about us going to the Rapids and applying there. That was a different developer for a different project they were developing apartments or something on the Mackey property. That was not us. We have, since the beginning, operated on a plan, a basic plan that was drawn for the Chanticleer subdivision long before we were involved in this process. The product that we're looking at and the material plan that we have is designed for Big Pine Road. It wasn't something that we created separately. We inherited that plan. And I want to, just remind you, we're not here asking for a rezoning or a changing of the entitlements of the property. We wanted to be compliant at all times. With that, I've heard a number of legitimate concerns and things that I think some we can agree on and some we may not. And I may go through them out of order because I was taking notes as fast as I could. Traffic study, we addressed that. Plan for amenities, and I'll kind of go just as people came up. So the plan for amenities, we do, I think, have some signage, for our section of the neighborhood. We wanted to respect the neighborhood and coordinate with that neighborhood and create signage for our section. I think it's in your packet. I don't know if that's appropriate to show or not. We wanted to kind of separate that out, and we wanted to be Renfield at Chanticleer to respect the neighborhood. And up front, if the neighborhood wanted to get together, if they wanted to redesign this or have some input, we'd be happy to do that. The sales price, and I'm going to go back to the entrance in a minute. We're going to spend some time on that. Okay, the sales price, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 for the houses. The houses will be from 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. And there'll be 3, 4, 5 bedroom houses. Our intention is to have hardy board siding and 3-tab shingles for the roof. So we do want to respect the neighborhood and the building process there. Let's see. So, and as far as HOA, homeowners association, we don't have one. I spoke with a lady, and I can't remember her name, in the neighborhood, who has handled the sign before. We don't have a homeowners association of yet. We will have one. We can either join theirs or they can join ours. We would manage that, and that would be something that, here again, I'd want to cooperate with the neighborhood and have them agree to that. Sidewalks, the city of North Augusta requires us to have sidewalks, so we will have sidewalks in our subdivision. So that's a requirement. I think it's a good requirement, and unfortunately, it's one that is relatively new, but I think it's a good thing, and I agree with you. So, you know, you're welcome to come walk on our sidewalks, or they can be, you know, if we're all the same homeowner association, they can be your sidewalks as well. As far as, and I'm gonna get into one thing real quick as I'm coming to it, the right lane. So I think Mr. Hipp and Mr. Sanders both had a point, and I listened to one of the last ladies talk about how she's worried pulling out. Well, the people we're building houses for are gonna have the same concerns, and we don't want to. I don't want people to feel like they're pulling out and gonna get killed. So we do own the 2 parcels right at Martintown Road. So there are 2 parcels that are currently trees. They're overgrown with bushes. There's beautiful landscaping at the entrance, but behind that, it's really overgrown and it messes with the sight line. The lady I talked to, and forgive me for not knowing who she or remembering who she is, I mentioned to her that we could limb that up, and so we can create a better sight line. We own the property, and so it is our intention to get a consensus of how we clean that property up so that we can have better sight lines. And I'd go a step further, and something, as I said originally, we want to cooperate, and as a potential future participant in Chanticleer, I may even suggest to the commission that you make conditional approval based on the fact that we add a right turn lane to exit the property. And so that's something that's above my pay grade with traffic engineering and things like that, but I'm telling you, we're willing to participate in that to help alleviate that. And that could be, a suggested condition. Not that I'm trying to suggest that you put more requirements on us, but I do want to cooperate with everybody. There is, and the gentleman spoke about the conservation subdivision. I get words are words, and they're cute, and they sometimes don't mean anything. When we developed this out, we did wetlands delineation. So we have to do a wetlands delineation. So we hired Hamp Simpkins from Charleston to come up, and he locates the edges of the wetlands. I used to think it was based on water. It's not. It's based on plant life. I learned a lot about that. And so there can be wetlands in areas that are high. So we have a certified and marked wetlands delineation. And we will not be going in that. And with that wetlands delineation, we've created buffer zones that, technically this 65 acres as is zoned for R10 could take 250 houses. We're developing less than 57. We're leaving 43% of the property undeveloped. And when I say that, we're not cutting trees down there. We are cutting trees down. We are adding traffic to you. But we are trying to be cognizant and not just be wordy about a cute name of a conservation subdivision, but we do intend to have that remain. We could talk about walking trails. There are currently walking trails on the property that was owned by the Diddies. We own that property now. We could talk about creating some walking trails through those green areas because they're there. There's little bridges that cross the creeks right now. So again, this is in the city of North Augusta. It's part of the, it's been part of the plan for a long time. We are following all federal, state, and local requirements for wetlands and any kind of things to do with archaeology or whatever. We will follow that to the letter. Property line adjustment. There's a gentleman at the top who had a property line concern. I'd love to just meet with him later. We will get our surveyor, and I'd like to work that out, figure out how to handle that. Site distance, again, that's another issue that kept coming up. And I mean, like I say, we don't want to add to this issue. We want to help solve it, and I think we can help solve it. As far as the water, it doesn't move. We don't want to move it. That is a good point. That's what we don't want to do. We want to keep those streams untouched. We met with the stormwater. We're improving the crossing. There's a really small culvert right now that crosses the main stream. We're improving that in cooperation with the Corps of Engineers. And property values. I did take the opportunity to employ an appraiser to appraise the general size houses with today's building standards. And it is his opinion, I have a copy of that letter, I can present it for the file, that the property values that we're going to add just due to construction costs and new things will significantly increase the current property values of the property, of the existing Chanticleer neighborhood. As I said, the house ranges will probably be somewhere around 300,000. I mean, that there's a variation depending on lumber prices and different things like that. But if we built the house today, that's what they would be. And we went over the HOA and the turn lane. So if there's any other questions.
I think several members of the community brought up the archaeological piece or artifacts, and then I think the environmental piece, if they're birds habitat, any information that you might offer on those in particular?
I mean, the best we can do with it, and this here again, this may be an area where it's a dissatisfactory answer to some, and I understand that. I love being outdoors, and I appreciate that. I go hiking and camping in the a lot with my boys, and I appreciate nature. And the best we can do within the current zoning and the property value that we have is to create as much green space as we can. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that it's a conservation subdivision. I understand that could be misconstrued or whatever, but I do think it's a good effort, and hopefully will be a good result. And the wetlands, we are staying out of those. They're still available to walk on them. They're not really, the creeks are wet, but it's a good walkable area and a good place to spend time there. And the detention pond, I think one of the latest people at Greenway, I think, there's a detention pond. That was a request by the city of North Augusta to us to donate that land. And we went along with that in order to help a problem they think they have, and maybe some of the problems they're experiencing. That's out of my area as well. But our intention there again was to be as cooperative as possible with that. So.
Okay. All right. I think that is, Commissioners, do you all have any questions before we discuss and get to a motion? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Dr. Crawford,
Yes.
Could I add a few things?
Yes, please.
May have been asked. As far as the traffic impact analysis, the TIA, that should be online with the agenda packet, and it is public information. There is a link on our website to request public documents, and if they would submit that request, we would get them a copy of this. The minimum setback was asked from the front of the property. The R10 subdivision, and this isn't unique to this subdivision, this is the R10 zoning district. You have a minimum setback of 15 feet and a maximum setback of 35 feet. The vote last month, the Planning Commission voted 2-2, which was a tie, so the motion failed. In that same meeting, the Planning Commission then had a motion to reconsider. That was duly seconded. The commission voted to reopen it. Then there was another motion to continue it to this meeting that was duly seconded and passed. Dr. Crawford asked me, and I did reach out to the city attorney the following day, and we did. The Planning Commission did act legally and appropriately with their decisions based on the city attorney's comments there. So that's how we never say it was denied last month. That's only part of the actions that was taken by this commission last month. Now you have the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey said. The other thing is the rapids has been put in here. The Rapids has nothing to do with this development. Y'all have never had an application before you that has been, we have not had an application for development for that property next to the Rapids. What we had was a sketch plan, and the developer submitted a sketch plan, and based on whatever reasons, he never followed through with the development of the property. So just to have that all clear on the record, that there's no, the Rapids, the developer just left. He changed his mind.
And I think one other question, though, for Mr. Holloway, just because I was looking through my notes while Mr. Paradise was talking. I think several people mentioned archaeological or artifacts, and so I don't know what the
We have done a phase one environmental study there, and we you know, if we find any artifacts there, we would obviously treat them with, you know, we would report them as needed. You know, I'm sure most of North Augusta and most of the houses that are built in Hammond Hills have had some impact on archaeological history, and I'm sure they're, you know, we'll follow whatever rules we can to treat that with respect and appreciation. And you know, so and to just clear, the developer for the other product is not us, and we did not ask for a continuance or any kind of stay. There's no, you know, I don't want any. I'm not trying to be. Anyway, we came for our sketch plan and a year ago, and that was a successful review at the time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, any conversation or discussion or motion? You were tapping like you were.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
My question earlier on about the striping and the two-way coming out, and I was looking on my pocket computer, Earth, looking at the width of the entrance, and so I was paying attention to everybody when they were saying something. I was just still trying to collect some information. I was trying to build a concession to, in the event in the morning or the afternoons, that the traffic wouldn't back up a quarter of a mile or 0.2 of a mile. And that's what precipitated that question. And I did not quite understand if it was already a condition or a remedy in reading the study. So that's how that came about, but you answered it thoroughly. I've been on the planning commission for a few years, and I've not run into a developer that has made these kind of concessions. In North Augusta, we try to discourage clear cutting, because the topography in North Augusta is, you know, it's challenging, can be challenging. But to have a developer come in here and don't utilize every inch of the land that they can to maximize on profit, I think is admirable. I kind of look at myself at my stage in life and say, if I've got a development, I might tend to max it out. But he chose not to. I also was looking up the average rent in Aiken. I think is $1,445. And a lot of times when we have these hearings, I make mention of me growing up in North Augusta and what it was like a whole bunch of years ago. It's not the same. It's not going to return to be the same. I live on the same side of Martintown Road, and coming out of my neighborhood, my daughter had a front-end collision trying to get in the suicide lane. So I think everybody on the commission realized that getting out on Martintown Road is not easy. It takes patience getting out on Martintown Road, and the future plans of the Planning Commission is to mitigate some of those problems. And when we state that maybe the DOT, it doesn't trip the necessary amount of cars to get a traffic light, it's going to, with the neighborhoods coming in and what we have coming in on Martintown Road. So it's been a pleasure sitting in on this particular public hearing and having the questions answered. and looking at what he has before us, there's no reason that I see, and I'm speaking for myself, how can we deny it? I just want to stay on the record that I'm well pleased with where we are. It's going to be some changes. As I said a million times, my mom pushed back on, they're building all this stuff around me, and I said, you're going to love it. If you want to be in the rural area and move out to Edgefield County or Aiken County unincorporated, where you're on a plot of land, my mom is, she don't want me to tell her, wouldn't want me to tell her age, but I said, you're going to love it. You're a rock throw from your church. You're a rock throw from your grocery store. You're a rock throw from a dock in a box. And so North Augusta is still the same place it was. It's just a lot more people in it. And we're going to have these changes, and we're trying to manage the best we can.
Mic on. I want to say that I appreciate and acknowledge your concerns. Having grown up near there, I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. And again, we've all know somebody that's got a speeding ticket between Chanticleer and the bottom of that hill because the traffic that's flying off of Martintown Road and going down there. So, we acknowledge the traffic is an issue. But unfortunately, again, the traffic study being what it is doesn't at this point designate the need for a stoplight. And again, also acknowledge that, right, the concerns from just the livability of adding the additional cars into your neighborhood, a neighborhood without sidewalks. Again, we acknowledge that. My earlier questions were trying to, in regards to just getting clarification on connectivity to Shawnee, or looking for other ways to improve the connectivity of this, and again with the wetlands and topography, unfortunately, there just aren't any other options, and the developers seem to be doing the best they can given the property layout and so forth. Again, in spite of my concerns, same concerns of yours, the developer has presented a plan that's within the existing code. As Representative Commissioner Key has said, the only variance they're asking for is a block length variance that we've approved on numerous occasions for other developers. While I again hear your concerns, at this point I don't see anything in the request that's outside of the city code as requested tonight.
And so want to thank everyone for their participation. Have one other note just to make for the record, that we also, as commissioners, received emails that we have been able to read from the Pullens, David and Ruby, as well as Kurt and Neem Holmes. So with that, do I have a motion?
You do. I need to ask one question. Is it a variance for the cul-de-sac length, or what is it?
Waiver.
A waiver, okay.
It's a waiver, and then any conditions that you would. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion for application PP 22-003, Renfield at Chanticleer. I'd like to make a motion for approval of the major subdivision preliminary plat with the condition, as stated before, with the two exiting lanes, as well as the waiver for the extension of the cul-de-sac as requested.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, any other questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, all those opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right.
Our voice counts too.
Thank you.
And it
All right.
wasn't heard.
All right, so thank you all for coming. And next,
The man who spent 2 hours, we lived there. Our voice
ma'am.
has to be
Okay,
heard.
so we're moving on to application SP 22-002, River Falls Apartment, Phase 2, Major Site Plan. This is a request by Parker Augusta LLC for approval of 132 apartment units in Phase 2 of the River Falls. And development located on 8.71 acres, zoned R5, mixed residential. This property is located off Compassion Way, FKA the Frontage Road and West Martintown Road, TPN 001-20-02-006. All right. Mr. Paradise, you have anything to share with this application?
Yes, ma'am. This is for the site plan approval for River Falls Apartments.
Ms. Paradise, if you could speak into your mic a little clearer, because with the, can't hear. Thank you.
For River Falls Apartments. It's located off Compassion Way, which is formerly known as Frontage Road. It is 132 apartments in Phase 2. There's a total of 264 apartments. Phase 1 was previously approved. The apartments are also requesting a waiver from the open space requirements. Get my train of thought here. I'm sorry.
You okay? No, take your time.
This apartment complex has been through a series.
Excuse me, if y'all could please, if I understand you all need to, if you all could go out in the hallway to continue those conversations. Thank you. So we can make sure that the next applicant is heard and gets their full due process. Appreciate you. Okay. Thank you.
This project has been through a series of issues. This project has been seen, I think, 3 engineering companies, 2 or 3 different contractors. It is the reason that we only allow 3 revisions to our plans anymore before we bill again. As well as the engineering department requiring increased fees when they have to do major modifications. So there's a lot of history here, but that's not the applicant's issue. He was not involved in that. In October 16, 2020, Phase 1 had an application, and this is going back toward the open space issues. Had an application, and the contractor at the time exceeded the clearing limits. And Phase 2 was cleared as well. They cleared 4 acres more than they were supposed to. Stop work order was put on the property, and a major modification was issued on April 23rd of 21. So that project ceased for a good 6 months. It sat there. And then we got a new owner in April of 22, and I think he may have had some issues with some site work, and since then he's been trying to work with the city, and the city's been trying to work with him basically to get this project out of the ditch and completed. Nobody wants to see a project like this fail. We always want to see things moving on. So some of the issues, for lack of a better expression, he inherited. Now, as part of this approval, we also have a traffic impact analysis. But we would make the recommendation that as a condition of approval, that there is a right-out only intersection modification made at Frontage Road or Compassion Way and Martintown Road, and the developer install a portion for a traffic light at Knob Cone and Martintown Road. And what this will do is it will force the traffic coming out to make a right turn onto Martintown Road coming into town, and when they get in the knob cone, they can make a U-turn. And the theory is that the red light would protect them in making the U-turn. There is some other developments that may be, we may ask for a similar condition for a red light there. So there's a lot of play in that particular intersection, but that's kind of where we're at. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Paradise at this point? Okay. Nope. Yeah.
One is his major site plan, and the traffic impact analysis is requiring the right, well, actually, it would require a traffic signal at Frontage Road and Martintown Road. However, it's too close to the other red light. So DOT says, nope, it's got to be a right out. So that right out, then you go down a couple blocks to make the U-turn. Well, that's how that ties in, because you're putting that traffic there and protecting that traffic and making the U-turn.
Any other questions, Mr. Paradise? Okay. If the applicant could please come forward. And again, I'm sure you're familiar with the.
Yes, my name is Bill Shuttlecotty, 102 Autumn Hall Drive, Wilmington, North Carolina. I will try to keep this brief, since you're all familiar with the project already. As Mr. Paradise said, we did inherit we purchased the property actually in January of this year. Phase 1 already being approved, so I apologize, I don't know a lot of the history behind it. But as Mr. Paradise said, we've been working with them to get it back on track, and we are willing to do whatever's reasonable to make that happen. We did do a new traffic impact analysis, which, as he said, requires right turnout only and a U-turn at knob cone, and we were certainly willing to do that. My understanding is there's another project coming across the street that will be probably 10 times the amount of traffic that we will be putting into the corridor. If there's a mechanism by which we could share in the cost, it would seem a lot more equitable. I get that's not always the way it works. But other than that, as far as the waiver, Lance Cheeley, our landscape architect, is here to address any questions regarding that, which is out of my expertise. But otherwise, happy to answer any questions.
What was your last name again?
Shuttlecotty.
That's Shuttlecotty. That's what I thought. Thank you.
I'm Lance Cheeley, 1104 Campbellton Drive, North Augusta. I'm here representing Mr. Shuttlecotty, particularly in respect to the open space waiver. I do want to make it plainly clear that my limited involvement in this project was the landscape plan for the second phase of the site plan. So any questions that would pertain to general site planning, how we got to where we are, I've done my research, but as far as responsibility or why did we make that decision, that is beyond my level of expertise. I just want to say, the site, we know we got a long history here, so a lot of these things were inherited. We want to come to something that is agreeable to the commission, to the citizens of North Augusta, and as well as something that's not penal to our owner for inheriting something that he might not have been fully aware of. Example of a penal type of scenario would be if you did a fee in lieu of for the second phase of this property. The value of that would be over $600,000 if it was a pure fee in lieu of. So that's for only half of this development. We think that we can come to something that's a little bit or that's a lot less penal than that, and something that we have entertained is how do we get here? Why did we end up with 135,000 square feet of open space that we that there's a waiver for. So if you go back very far back, this first phase, phase 1, is about 8 acres. So roughly the same as phase 2 in what is actually included in the development of that acreage. It was awarded a waiver at some point in the recent past to go from what should be about 130,000 square feet of open space to a 1,600 square foot playground that gets 3 times the value, so it's around 3,000 plus square feet. So phase 1 was approved with that, and that's where we started. And so when you go back and look at some of the previous documents, phase 1 didn't only include grading in the area of that development, so they have to have a detention pond, they have to have some other things. So, that original acreage was close to 13 out of the 16 acres that, in my initial understanding of, phase 1 of the project, or first iteration of the project, was included in that waiver. So that's why it didn't really get flagged in the first portion of this. So when we put our plans in for first review, it was pointed out to us, no, this is, this 132 units in phase 2 are triggering 1,024 square feet of open space per unit. So that's where you get 132 units times 1,024. That's about 130,000 square feet of open space that has to be accounted for. That's a lot. Just outright saying it. I've dealt with some apartment developments in North Augusta previously. Never seen the scenario, and I went back and Tommy and I had a quick discussion of, hey, why is this just now an issue? It has to do with those other developments being in a PD. So, right, something about those PD apartment complexes has not required a open space, which has not triggered an open space issue. So what you're seeing is, these apartment units are probably, I should know the number, but they're probably within the 1,000 to 1,500 square feet per.
Average is around 1,000 to 1,100 average square footage.
So you have a situation where you're on a lot that's already, it was chosen for density. You have units that are 1,000 square feet. Then the code requires another 1,000 square feet of open space, but your apartments are stacked on top of each other. So it's a really heavy dose of open space that comes along with apartment complexes in North Augusta, not in the PD. With that said, I'll say I'm a citizen of North Augusta. I really appreciate the comprehensiveness of the North Augusta code. It tells you exactly what you should expect, exactly what you should do. There's not really a gray area in it. So what I would like to kind of present today is, hey, a little bit of past on exactly what went on this site, and then just a look at the code, because as you well know, the North Augusta zoning code has 7 approved types of open spaces. They each come with caveats, requirements, maximum and minimum square feet that you can put into each type of open space. So that in and of itself makes it a little bit of more of a puzzle piece to put together if you don't qualify for some of the major types of open space. Sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Apologize to everybody who couldn't hear me earlier. With this, I'd like Tommy to look at the aerials, the past that we included. Did that make it in here, Tommy?
There you go.
Okay. Can we go to the aerials first?
Start and go backwards.
Well, actually, I'd like to start on the second slide and point out. Okay, so so the area in question that was regraded that was graded outside the limits is this little area that's in this red triangle right now. So at some point, my understanding is that this was open space. This was what was qualifying as open space. So if you go back to 2022, obviously that's when it was cut down. So sometime between 2019 and 2022, that area was cleared. So if you keep going back, Tommy, you'll see, the slide's a little bit dark, but you'll see it between 2017, you can keep going back a little bit of a clip, Tommy. So you can see the vegetation starting to grow there. And at this point, 2014, I believe it's the next slide, Tommy, is when, okay, so it's been cleared right here. So what we were considering at some point, open space that qualified for the ordinance in one of these iterations was, volunteer growth that occurred between 2007 and 2021. something like that. So around 7 to 10 years, give or take. So just to just have that in mind, and then go back to the North Augusta letter of the law. So what you'd like to have in an ideal scenario is to maintain a level of natural area. By the North Augusta Code, that means it can't have been graded in, it can't be disturbed, it can't really be altered. So that's the letter of the law and the gist of it. So if you keep going back on these slides, you'll see this site was a borrow pit apparently back into the early 90s. So this site was never really, in the last 30 years, in a state of undisturbed open space. So with that, Tommy, I'd like to bring up the exhibit that we put together. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to read here, but you can see there's a light green area that is everything to the east side of the development that is grading, some saved area, some buffer area, and detention pond. So I'll remind you that the required open space for this development is 135,000 square feet. The light green open space, the light green area there is what I would call non-qualifying open space per the North Augusta ordinance. It's been graded, it's been taken down, but it is an area that will not be developed in. It's got a detention pond, it's got slopes that make it undevelopable in the future. You know, lots of places, right or wrong, would consider this open space, right? Lots of places say if you don't build a structure on it or some type of infrastructure, it's open space. So by that definition, we would qualify here. And again, to go back and reference those past slides, there's not a lick of this property that ever really could have qualified for a natural, unaltered open space. So the difference in really the letter of the law and the gist of it, I think, the intent of it is 5 years, 7 years of time passing on this property, and you would get an equivalent to what we accepted and saved in a previous iteration for open space. Now that's first part of it. Second part of it, after a brief discussion with Tommy and his interpretation of the green belt, that's that darker area. Originally, I thought that the green belt was the same criteria as the natural area, ungraded, unfiltered, unaltered at all. So I didn't think we qualified. But discussion with Tommy, we believe that we can qualify for that open space or that green belt based on this iteration. And so that area is about 90,000 square feet. So if you were to grant this waiver by the letter of the law, you would be granting approximately 40,000 square feet of open space that should be there that we don't have. We would ask that you consider that as not better than 130,000 that we don't have, and considering the situation that the site's been cleared multiple times, you don't have a real virgin area to maintain, and the fact that our owner has inherited a lot of these problems, inherited the challenges that come with this site, and really been compliant or been working with the city to bring this project into compliance. If you were to really be, if you really wanted to continue and get these things to the letter of the law, it would become possibly penal in another regard that you would lose buildable space. So what's shown here would have to be, there's not a way to get more green space in this phase 2 that's not taking away from some of the buildable area. So then that brings financial feasibility for the owner into the question, and that's not an answer that I can bring here tonight, but I would like to put forth that phase 1 versus phase 2. Phase 1, we had 3,000 square feet of green space that was awarded via waiver. If you accept the 90,000 square feet that does qualify based on the Planning Commission comment, you have 30 times what was approved in phase 1, just by right. And then if you believe and you accept what we've put forward as give us 7 years and we'll have what we had previously as open space, then you've more than compensated for the 135,000 square feet that is required, and possibly started to make up some of that open space that was wavered in phase 1. So we would ask that you approve this waiver in light of those facts. Thank you.
So I'm assuming, okay, so are there any questions for the applicant from the commissioners? No?
I drove your lot the other day. This is just a curiosity question. The back wall, how is that maintained? Is that terracing back from my mind's eye? You had one side that was well done with the wall, brick, the blocks. Then when you look back at the back, what is that, the terracing back?
I believe the walls and this is totally off the off the record for me as a design professional. This is just a kind of a looking at the site and making a good guess. A lot of those, again, challenges that were inherited from a previous wrongful grading. There is one retaining wall on the lower or the northeast side of the site where it's closest to. Is that the back pain center, Tommy? That north side, there is one retaining wall that's pretty tall, and it's a little bit precarious as far as grading goes. My understanding is that has been approved and maybe facilitated by North Augusta Engineering Department.
And Tommy can maybe answer this, but I believe that was to help with the erosion control.
The wall was allowed to go there to help mitigate erosion control and allowed by the city engineer because they needed to mitigate what had been done there. And at some time, the wall was going to need to be there, and instead of continuously, make a long story short, they went ahead and said, okay, you can go ahead and do it.
Just out of curiosity, what's about the average rent that you're expecting, given the
I just looked at that because it's been a while. I believe it was about $1,200 to $1,600 a month, depending whether it's 1 or 2 bedrooms.
Oh, so 1 or 2 bedrooms.
Well, the landscaping in phase 1, I assume those plans have already been approved. It's not installed yet. How does that compare to the landscape and the buffers that you're putting in? Is it different material? Is it similar? Are they talking to each other? Are they relatable? Or is it going to look like 2 completely different sites?
No, we reference phase 1 in our phase 2 landscaping. The building landscapes are similar or same plants to the ones that the neighborhood will see. All the buffers are compliant with North Augusta requirements, both your interior your perimeter parking, your interior parking, and your actual buffers.
Does the material balance or the material match in those buffers that were in phase 1 to phase 2, or is it?
Yes. Yeah. So your main continuous buffer from phase 1 to phase 2 is that back buffer, and it's exactly the same. Your front buffers are not non-contiguous, but they are generally the same material.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Maybe a question for Tommy. How does the shared cost of the traffic signal, how does that affect our decision tonight? And then how does that detail get worked out?
And that's something I've been trying to figure out as well. I think if it's conditioned on this project, and within the next couple of months, I expect you to have, if not next month, the following month, the other project. And then we can work with the owners and try to work out an equitable solution, since both of them are required to put one there. Well, in fact, as I think about it, the other property owner is already required to put one there. In the original PUD plan, it's just a matter of when that was gonna go in. And we are going to be looking at it at phase one rather than further down the line, where he was planning on doing it in the past.
And I think the only recommendation from staff was with the right turn, so the condition of a right turn lane.
Right turn and a traffic signal, and, yes,
Right turn and then cooperation with the other developer.
Correct.
Traffic signal are the conditions.
and of course, that's what I meant to say, that's also conditioned on SCDOT allowing it.
Okay.
If DOT said, no, that traffic light can't go, it would not be fair to the developer to hold up his project.
All right, so it is, let me make sure we're clear on the conditions. So the conditions would be for the right turn lane and then contingent upon SCDOT approval, cooperation with the other developer around the traffic signal. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that a waiver of open space? With
And
an
green
ask?
space. And green space, yeah. That was just the conditions on the, yeah. All right, is there any other discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'll say that I'm not in favor of relieving open space requirements. I think it's built into our code for a reason, and I think it's a good thing for developments to have. But that being said, with this developer and the circumstances he's under, I'd be in support of the waiver on this development.
And I think I concur, so I asked Tommy to look at open space, but the idea that something that has been graded and you all inherited years ago can't be considered open space. But if it were to be, then you'd be well over 200 and something thousand square feet of open space. So given the particulars of this development and the history of this property, I concur as well. So. Nothing else? Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion in regards to application SP 22-002 River Falls Apartment Phase 2 major site plans. I move for approval with the waiver of the open space requirement as well as the condition of the right turn only predicated on South Carolina DOT approval, as well for the traffic light to be at Narcone.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, the motion has been moved and seconded with the aforementioned conditions and waiver. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. All right. So, Mr. Paradise, if you could get us a staff report, and then we can get everybody home. It's time to go to work tomorrow.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Chair Lady, I'm a little brain dead, so let me go here. We are continuing with the development code. We have got that on a hard copy now and got that out to the members on the advisory committee so that they can not only see it in the digital, but they can feel it, read it, mark it, put it under the pillow, whatever they want to do with it. And in a couple weeks, we should be meeting on that again. I want to give the committee time to look at that. We are also, the Georgia Avenue traffic calming is underway. They've done the traffic collection data on that. You may have seen the tubes and the cameras downtown. And we'll be looking at getting together with the business owners and property owners on Georgia Avenue next, in a joint meeting. We also have on October 6th, the joint meeting with the council and planning commission. The building will be busy that night. And so we will be meeting in the conference room right behind here. Okay. The other upstairs, the 4th floor, and then the study room on the 1st floor are both already booked. And I think that's it, Dr. Crawford.
And then any folks that are still in Facebook land, a lot of the zoning and changes and concerns that we hear about on a case-by-case basis are covered in the development code. So I encourage everyone to find it. I think it's on the website as well, and then share your feedback through the planning office as we work on refining and redoing.
Now, we have not put the new code on
Okay.
there.
But any feedback around the previous code would be helpful at this juncture. All right, and that being said, I don't need a motion, but I surely would like to adjourn this evening.